Hey everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at 0.5.0, the Overdrive update. Some of this is going to be a recap of stuff that I snuck into the build on some of the minor updates. Some of this stuff is new, but let's just get into it. So the first thing we're going to look at is an improvement to the artifact display here. So the buttons now show what the primary modifier is, so you don't have to swim through the mouse overs to get that information. Not a huge deal, but I wanted to call this one out. We also have loadouts now, so you can pick any combination of artifacts you want and then just save your loadout. You can give it a name. There's no limit to the number of loadouts you can have, so people like to have different builds for different maps, and now you can easily swap around your loadouts without having to swim through your enormous list of artifacts here. Speaking of enormous list of artifacts, I've also increased the cap to 75. I know some people want it to be unlimited, but it does add quite a bit of load to the save file system, which are being saved every single wave, so I want to keep the saving pretty invisible to the player. If you have like 600 of these things, you probably would notice a little bit of a hitch. So that's why it is limited. I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, it's just computers. Alright, so the next thing we're going to look at is this experimental system called Overdrive. So you'll see that it's locked. But if you upgrade every single upgrade this turret has, it'll unlock the ability to overdrive it. So overdrive upgrades are very expensive, and they're generally intended for you to blow your money on them when you have nothing else to buy. You get plus 5% damage for each overdrive level, and they're infinite, so you can just shovel money into this thing indefinitely. Again, this is just something for you to spend when you're maxed out. I highly recommend not using overdrive unless you're in the end game. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is some tuning rework on hyper creeps level 11 and up. So creep health will begin to scale exponentially at hyper level 11 and higher. But the score you get for killing these creeps will also scale exponentially. So what that means is that you will have a shorter play session, but you should get the same score and artifact drops you normally would without having to sit there for several hours getting to wave 400. People are getting a little bored when these maps go on too long, so it's supposed to address that. I'm sure there'll be a couple little fiddly toony bits with this, but yeah, it's in there. Let me know what you think. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is this pretty major upgrade to the pulsar. So its projectiles can now pass through solid surfaces, so it still needs line of sight to acquire a target, but the pulses will pass through the floor, the walls, whatever it needs to track its target. Before, it would often clip a surface simply because the bullet would start tracking and it would hit the wall. Kind of made this turret a little bit difficult to use and frustrating, but the penetrating shot should fix that pretty well. Okay, so another thing I did here was increase the level cap from 100 to 500. After 100, your level rate will slow down quite a bit. It's only going to be one extra start cred and one extra max POW. But some people put in a lot of hours into this game, and I wanted them to get recognized for that. So you're not intended to grind in this game. You don't need to grind. You don't need artifacts. All maps, I beat them on hard with no artifact use at all. But some people want to see the numbers go up, and now they go on pretty much indefinitely. I'll be very surprised if I see somebody at level 500. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some new maps. So the first one here is called Bumper, and it's got these two large open platforms here, and you can see that there's lots of build space, boosters, tantalizing glebe containers, but also these kind of tracks that run up the side here that allow you to route over and around to the other side. So this is a pretty good map for making long mazes. It'll tax your brain a little bit trying to figure out the best maze through it. Okay, so the next map we have here is called Spiral, and you can see that these upper sections here are blocked by glebe containers, so in order to maximize this map, you're going to have to deal with those. But you're able to route the creeps all the way through the spiral into the middle here, jumble them around, and then wind them all the way back out. Now, there's a little catch though. This map does have porters. So here you can see the porter teleporting all the way into the middle, and then all the way back out again instantly, so always be aware of the types of creeps that are spawning in the maps. But you can deal with them simply by putting a little bit of a bend here, like this. Porters are very susceptible to jagged mazes. But yeah, just keep that in mind. This is a bit of a late map down the list, so I'm not expecting new players to beat their head against the wall with this one, but it's an interesting one. Plays out very differently than anything else that I've made so far. Okay, well that's all I got for the video today. There's actually a ton of other things in the patch notes. Again, some of the stuff came out fresh with 0.5.0. Some stuff I've been just sort of adding as I go since 0.4. But yeah, check out the patch notes, there's tons of stuff. I think the next update I might start chipping away at what remains of the story. There's not going to be a ton of new story stuff. The story's always intended to be lightweight, but it is kind of incomplete. I'm still trying to figure out an ending to this weird, absurd thing. I've got some ideas, but if anybody has any interesting ideas, I'd love to hear them. I'm planning on maybe doing just 5 more chapters versus the current 10 chapters, but yeah, let me know what you think, everybody. Most of these updates are filled with unplanned stuff anyway, so I'm always open to suggestions. But yeah, enjoy 0.5.0, everybody. You have a good one.